Okay, so we explained yesterday the halachma. Today we're going to go into manishtana and yeah, fine, and avadim hayinu. So the Gemara, the Hagadah asks the manishtana, and they ask the four questions. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים, מה נשתלה הלילה זה מכל הלילות? שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, והלילה זה כולו מצה. That's one question. The second question is שאר ירקות, והלילה הזה מרור. Third question is matbilin. We don't have a chiyuv. There's a whole interesting dion in the Rishonim what the girsa is here, but fine, okay. Right. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבים ובין מסובין, והלילה זה כולנו מסובין. So four shilas. Now, in terms of the din, or in terms of the din of the Gemara, this is being Makayim, a din in Magid, which is nifsak in the Rambam, which is that the chiyuv of the way that you have to tell the story, it has to be derech she'ela v'tshuva, kushya or piruka. And that is the ikka point of this, right? That is the ikka point of these shilas, that there should be a question. In other words, if you don't have a question, there is a set a number of questions that you must ask. And the Gemara brings Kama Maisim where two of the Tanoim were sitting around the Leila Seder together, and one of them asked the kasha, and he said, "You've patted me from patrani min manishtana." There's a critical element over here which needs that you have to ask a shaila. You have to have derech she'ela v'tshuva. And the shaila is, why does Magid require that I should have derech she'ela v'tshuva? Why? Well, what's the nakuda there? Okay, so like this. The pshat in that goes like this. The lomdus of she'ela is that my hanochas are wrong. Whenever you have a kasha, whenever a person has a kasha, that means that you've analyzed the situation to a certain level, and there are things that don't add up. There are things that don't add up and don't make sense. And therefore, I have a kasha. And well, let's put it like this. When you're dealing with okay, so when you're dealing outside Torah, that could just mean that the whole thing's nonsense, right? But when you're dealing with Torah, so what that means, what that obligates, is that you have to have a deeper havana in what your hanochas were, and because the hanochas that you have aren't working out, right? And if your pashup pshat, if your pshat till now is wrong, so that means that there's something wrong in your method, and you've got to relook at it, re-examine it, and go deeper and make it work, right? Because it's Torah's emes, right? That's how you learn, right? That's how you learn Schweitzer. That you have to know that the hanocha for learning, right, is that you know that what's being said to you is emes, right? Otherwise, if you have kashas, you say so it's wrong and shalom, and you move to the next thing. So that's not how we learn. How do we learn? If we know, whenever you learn, let me just explain this concept, right? When you learn a Rambam and you know and you have a kasha on the Rambam, so why don't you say, okay, so the Rambam's wrong, right? Right? So we laugh, right? It's like ridiculous. And why is that ridiculous? Because we know who the Rambam was, and we know that there's Torah MS, and the Rambam knows what he's talking about, and we have an emunah chachomim, that the Rambam knows what he's talking about. Right? So Mamela, what you do is when you approach a Gemara, a Chazal, a Rishon, whatever it is, and you have a kasha, so that means that your understanding is wrong, not the Rishon, obviously. Right? So that's how your reaction is. So what do you have to do? You have to rethink. You have to rethink. You have to think on a deeper level. You have to bring into another nakuda into the picture, which will allow you to be mistadeh your problems, right? Pashut, right? Okay. So that's how it works. So now, the reason why Magid has to have a mahalach of she'ela and tshuva is because the Hagadah is telling you something very deep over here. It's telling you, the mitzvah of Magid is directing you in a very specific direction, which is that your hanochas were not right. You should be having kashas. If you don't have kashas, atalo mevin lachon, right? That's the message of the Hagadah. If you think that all of your hanochas that you have until now are right, v'akol muvan, v'akol mistader lecha, Ata lo avanta klum. Right? You haven't understood what Yetzias Mitzrayim is. Yetzias Mitzrayim is if you understand what's going on over here, that you should have kashas, because there's a whole new. Why should you have kashas? So we'll see how the Baal Hagadah will answer this in the Avadim Hayinu, but let's just give a Hagdama. The reason why you should have kashas is because Yetzias Mitzrayim started a whole new Hanhaga in the Bria, an entire new Hanhaga in the Bria that was not there before. It wasn't there before, and because there's a whole new Hanhaga in the Bria, you should have kashas. Me'echitesi, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is coming in v'lohotzi goy mikerev goy, and to do nisim v'niflaot. Like, why? Why should that be? Right? That should be shver to you. Right? That's not. That doesn't make sense. Right? If to you that makes sense, that alo avanta ma ze yetziat Mitzrayim. Right? You didn't understand. Right? Okay. Now I'll explain to you. We'll give you a hakdama. This is mamash. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac in his. He's meramis to this the whole way through the Hagadah, but in his Hakdama to the Hagadah, one of the main themes of what Yetzias Mitzrayim was that there's a new Hanhaga from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the koteret, right, of the title of that Hanhaga is what we call Hashkaha Pratis. What we call Hashkaha Pratis. Till now there wasn't Hashkaha Pratis as a klal. I'll explain what that means. Right? He gives a mashal. It's a very important thing to understand. There's two types of ways that the Bria can be misnaig. One is al yedei what's called Teva. Teva means that there's a system. And the way I always explain this is you think about a government. Right? A government means that there's a system in place, and the point of the government is to make the country as a whole work. That means that the objective of the government is not you as an individual. That's not the focus of the government. The focus of the government is that we've got something called the United Kingdom, right? We've got the Medina, and the Medina as a whole has to function. Right? Now, for sure, that means that the Yechidim, it has to work for the Yechidim. If it's not working for the Yechidim, then the country is not going to function. But we're not actually focused on the Yochid Sheba Atzmoi. We're focused on the Klal. That's called Hashkaha Claudiaus. What's the nafkamina with that? The nafkamina with that is that you don't deal with the guy that makes the decisions directly. If you think about how government is a mamash a good mashal to this, right? If you think about how it works, there's the guy at the top that makes all the decisions, the queen or whoever it is, or Bojo, right? And what happens is you don't actually ever talk to him. You never speak to him. You at best speak to an MP who reports back to him, and all of you, and there's a system, there's the parliament, and you have to come in, and you have question time where they come and they say what the bothers the issues of the constituents, and it goes up for a vote, and they see, does it work? Do these issues work with the general plan of where, or the direction that the country needs to go in? Im ken ken, im lo lo, right? There's a system, right? That's called a system. There's another system, which is that you deal with the melech directly. The way he says it, Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac, right, is that sometimes the Melech comes and visits the cities to see how things are functioning, and sometimes if you go have a bit of protectia or whatever it is, you can get an audience with the king and you can speak to him directly, right? And he is the all-powerful, and he is the guy that runs the show, and he can help you. He can help you directly. He has the ability to help you directly. What's the nafkamina? Right. So what's the nafkamina between these two hanhagas? The major nafkamina between these two hanhagas is what we call Hashkaha Pratis and Hashkaha Claudiaus. Hashkaha Claudiaus means like this. Hashkaha Claudiaus doesn't mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't know what's going on. That's of course he knows. That's rubbish, right? What that means is like this. When the objective is the klal as a whole, Yechidim fall through the gaps by definition. Because my objective isn't the Yochid. My objective is the klal. Right. So that means like this. For example, last year I came up with a fantastic module for this with the NHS because it was in the beginning of COVID. So here's the thing. Yeah, when you're dealing with, we've just gone through a pandemic. When you're dealing with a pandemic, the whole way that they were making gzeras on the klal was so that the NHS as a whole can function. So it doesn't matter whether you as an individual, whoever, right, Joe Schmo as an individual, for him to isolate now and to be in lockdown for the next 8 weeks or whatever it is an absolute disaster. It's going to destroy his parnasa, right? It's going to his wife's going to have a mental breakdown because she's got all the kids in the house. All of that stuff doesn't matter, right? It messes up the yochid. Doesn't matter because the decisions that are being made for the klal as a whole, and that's how we've got to focus on. All right. So because the NHS serves the klal, right? It's true that the yechidim make up the klal, but because the NHS serves the klal, and that's a critical thing. So Mela, the needs of an individual sometimes have to go by the wayside, kadei, that the system as a whole can function. Right. That's how governments work. That is called Hashgraph Claudiaus. That's what you call Hagadah Teva. Hagadah Teva means that there's a system. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a system, and that system has to function. That system is called Teva, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sometimes be mashkiach. Well, it's not sometimes. The whole way the Hashkaha works, the Hashkaha Elyoina works for the Umois, and until now, right? Until Yetzias Mitzrayim was a Hashkaha Claudiaus. That means that there's a Sar. Each nation has a Sar. There's Shivim Umois. Each Sar has a nation that he's working for, right? He's representing, and he's the part of the Hakadosh Baruch Hu's government that he's making the decisions for the Klal Ha'umah, right? No one's dealing with Hakadosh Baruch Hu directly. Hashkaha Pratis means that you talk to Hakadosh Baruch Hu directly. That's a totally different hanhaga, and what that means now is if you're talking to the big boss himself, so now your needs as an individual are going to be taken into account by the big boss. It's a totally different hashkacha. You're a yochid now. Now, until Yetzias Mitzrayim, there was no hanhaga like that. There was something called Hashkaha Pratis. But it was only for Yechidei Skula Mamash, basically the Ovus, and that's it. No one else had Hashkaha Pratis apart from the Ovus and the Shiftei Kar v'chulei, right? And you had to earn that. You had to be a big man. You had to be a very big man. If you weren't Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and the Shiftei Kar, you didn't get that, right? That's the Ma'aseh of Avraham. We'll talk about that later. The Bris Bein Besarim, they was motzei him from the Mazalos, right? That's what that was. But for the klal, for as a klal, that there should be a nation that the starting point is that each yochid has a hashkacha pratis with a Kadosh Baruch Hu and kazadavar. There was no such thing like that. There was no hanhaga like that at all. Right? Yetzias Mitzrayim was machadish, this new hanhaga in the bria. All hanachas of how you understand how the bria works are now out the window. You should have kashas over here. That's the oimek of derech she'ela v'tshuva. If you're looking at Yetzias Mitzrayim correctly, you should have kashas, because there's a whole new thing happening over here. There's a whole new hanhaga in the bria which never existed before, and you should be looking at this thing and you should be saying Mehei Chetesi. What's going on over here? I don't understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make these types of nisim, and that each person in Klal Yisrael, each mishpacha has his needs met and everything. We'll talk about that in the nisim in a minute. How that was expressed in the nisim. Right? Look, we'll talk about that later. I want to just give a hakdama. Right? This is the ikka one of the ikka nakudas of what Yetzias Mitzrayim was machadish. And Memela, this is what the Bala Hagadah is telling you. You should have shilas. This is what Chazal are telling us. To be makayim the mitzvah of magid, you have to have kashas. Because if you don't have kashas, if you don't have she'elot v'tshuva, there are things here that you look at this thing and you just see the whole picture clearly. So then there's something missing there. Because Yetzias Mitzrayim was machadish. It was, yeah?
You mean we dark down the Lashon Manishtana Harazeh? What actually changed on this night? Is that what it was? That changed?
Manishtana.
That too trushy.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not enough of a bucky. Manishtana kipshuto means, why is this?
Either way, why is it different?
Okay, yeah, why is it different? Okay, so now, here's that's the nakuda. Right, that's a nakuda, and that's niskale through she'el tshuva. That's why I want, because when you ask a kasha, by definition, when you're asking a kasha and you're approaching a Kadosh Baruch Hu like that, so you're understanding that I'm opening myself up to new havanas. I don't understand. Right, there's something more happening over here than what I understood. That is exactly what Yetzias Mitzrayim is supposed to tell you. There's something new happening over here which you didn't understand before. Right? We'll see that in the Avadim here. I want to. Is that clear? I want to show you another nakuda over here. Why these kashas? Why these kashas? Why these kashas dafka? So the Maral in Gvuras goes to explain why each one of these kashas be'etzem, right? Okay, he has his thing, but the theme of all these kashas, if you've noticed, it's the mitzvahs alayla. It's all the mitzvahs alayla. Matzah, moror, haseba, and tibble, which is also connected to moror in the sugis hagamorah. It's all the mitzvahs alayla. Right? Why is it like that? Why these kashas? These kashas. The Hagadah is telling you something very, very deep over here. That if you are mechuyev, if there's a mitzvah that's incumbent on you, that be'etzem means that this thing is shaykh to you. And that's going to be a major thing that we're going to see throughout the Hagadah. In other words, it's not just why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu back then do these wonderful nisim? No. That's like a philosophical thesis, right? That's not what Yetzias Mitzrayim is about. Yetzias Mitzrayim is Machayev you. 3,333, I think that's the exact cheshbon, right? This year, 3,333 years later, Yetzias Mitzrayim is Machayev you. It's Machayev you. That means there are mitzvahs that you in Tavshin Pei Aleph have to do because of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's Machayev you. That's this shinui that happened in the Bria is just as relevant to you as it is to the people 3,333. What's my raya? Because I'm chayev. That's the shilas that the Baal Hagadah is asking over here. Why do I have to eat matzah tonight? Why do we have to eat matzah tonight? That's a kasha. In other words, why is Yetzias Mitzrayim machayev me to do this? Why is Yetzias Mitzrayim machayev me to do moral? Me. And we'll see this again. This is another major theme that the Baal Hagadah is going to keep bringing up, which is that's the oimek of chayev adam laharas esatzmoi, which is that you have to understand that Yetzias Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did Yetzias Mitzrayim for us just as much as He did for them. The fact that He did it back then, 3,333 years ago, it's how we say in yeshivas grada, right? It's a side issue. It's just because there has to be something called history, and there's a door that has to live there, there's a door that has to live here, and there's a door that has to live now, right? But the kavanah of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the new hanhaga that Yetzias Mitzrayim brought into the world, was the kavanah of that was for us as well, and therefore I'm chayev. It can obligate me. There's actually mitzvahs that I'm chayev in because of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right? Me today, Kalani in Toshin Pei Aleph, I'm obligated because of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the shilas that the Baal Hagadah is asking over here, right? Because here's the thing. Here's about mitzvahs. The Nefesh HaChaim explains this, that mitzvahs are a crystallization of the Torah. That's what that is. Torah is mevi lidei maisa. That means that there's a whole, on all levels of the Torah, there's the pshat, the remez, the drush, the soid, the lomdus. Every mitzvah has all of this Torah, this ein sof shel Torah, which is connected to it. And the way that crystallizes down is in a mitzvah. It's in a mitzvah. In other words, when you do your matzah, all of the things and all of anything you could read, anything you could understand about the mitzvahs in terms of sugis and Gemara and the Hagadah and all of the Kabbalah and everything and the Machshava and the Pachad Yitzhaks and the Rabbi Moshe Shapiras and anything you want, it's all actually in that Maisa Matzah. It's all in there. It's all there. That mitzvah is actually bringing down, is actually crystallizing all of those concepts. All of that. Right? So when I'm obligated in that mitzvah, you are chayev to eat matzah, that means you have to eat matzah. You have to do haseba. You have to have moror. All of these, you as well. Now, 3,333 years later, that means that all of these things, all of the things that Yetzias Mitzrayim was machadish, are shaykh to you. They're shaykh to you. And therefore, when you're eating that, all of those Torahs are there. That's what the Baal Hagadah is asking over here. In other words, so we're saying two nukudas here. There's two nukudas. One is that there has to be she'el tshuva because the whole musag of what Yetzias Mitzrayim is that there's new hanachas. There's new hanachas. There's something new happening over here that wasn't there before, and that's machayev kashas. That's Machayev Kashas. And we'll see it in a minute, right? And we'll see in a minute. You can ask the same kashas every year. You don't change the kashas. It's the same kashas. Because each year, if you understand Yetzias Mitzrayim properly, you can understand it again and again and again, deeper, right? Because Yetzias Mitzrayim has this Ein Sof of Chiddush Hanhaga, right? That's all in there. Right? That's point number one. You have to have kashas. Because you haven't got to the end of what Yetzias Mitzrayim is. And why did the Baal Hagadah pick these kashas? Because they're mitzvahs. Dafka these, because the Baal Hagadah wants to point out to you that these are machai of you. And that's what the questions that you should be asking. Those are the right questions. The right questions are, what happened that's now machai of me moral? What manishtana halayla hazeh? What changed? What changed? Yeah, maybe. Manishtana, why is this night different? Why is this night different? Why now, because of now, do I have to eat moro? Why? Right? There's something new happening over here. Right? Those are the shilas that you're supposed to be asking. And now the Baal Hagadah is going to answer. We'll start. Okay, we've got another 10 minutes. We'll start Avadim Hayinu. And here, there's also diunim in the Mefarshim on where is the answer to this kasha. Right? Where do you answer these kashas? Okay, kipshuto. What the Baal Hagadah does now is he gives a general answer. Sort of like a Hakdama. Right, we'll see over the next couple of days. The structure of the Hagadah, just in terms of what it does over here, is that the Baal Hagadah now gives a general answer to this. Avadim hayinu lefarav b'Mitzrayim, right, and this is critical. And then you'll see that the Baal Hagadah will carry on and says, and it doesn't matter how big you are, how great you are, you've still got to speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it's nogea to everyone. That's why there's Daled Bonim, right? The four sign. This is relevant. Something major. We were Avadim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out, and that is critical for you to understand. That's why that is the title of why all of this is happening, and this is critical for everybody to understand. Chacham. And even if you don't know how to ask, we're going to open it up for you. And then it does all of that, and then it starts to tell over the story. So here, the Hagadah now is going to sort of give a hakdama, and that's the general answer to the shilas that you've asked. Okay? Right, so now let's start that now. Avadim hayinu lefarav b'Mitzrayim, v'tzienu Hashem Elokeinu misham biyad chazaka v'zroa netuya, ve'ilu lo hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu et avotenu b'Mitzrayim, hari anu v'neinu v'nei v'nei mushu'abedim hayinu lefarav b'Mitzrayim, v'afilu kulanu chachamim, kulanu vonim, kulanu tzkeim, kulanu yodim et haTorah, mitzvah le'nesaper b'yetziat Mitzrayim, v'chol ha'marbeh le'saper b'yetziat Mitzrayim, harei ze meshubach. So here, just before we, so how does the Baal Hagadah answer this? It says, yeah, you have to know why things are different, because we were slaves. That's the first sheet, by the way, of Latchil B'Knut Masayim B'Shvach. We'll talk about more about that maybe later. Yeah, we were Avadim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out. And if He didn't, we would still be there. And therefore, in other words, we would still be there. Here you see again in the Hagadah. This is Nogea to you. Don't think that happened all the way back then, just right? It's Nogea to you. You're obligated by Yetzias Mitzrayim. We were slaves. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't take us out, you would still be there. And therefore, afilu kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevolim, kulanu skelim, kulanu yodim et haTorah, mitzvah le'nesaper b'yitzes v'kol ha'marbeh le'saper b'yetziat Mitzrayim harei ze meshubach. It's nogea to you. It's nogea to you. That's a key component of how the Baal Hagadah answers that. By the way, just derech agav, right? Just you see from just kriya of the Hagadah, right? The post can bring down that you can be yotze magid by speaking over Hilchos Pesach, right? Zeh b'di'eved gadol rabotai. It's not yeshivish, right? It's super duper b'di'eved, right? It's super duper b'di'eved. Ani astaiti, right? Hilchos Pesach, that you can talk about Hilchos Pesach is when you're a very big man, right? And I'll explain that in a minute when we get to the She'elah of the Chacham. I'll explain it in a few days. But see, Even if you know the whole Torah and you know everything else, mitzvah aleinu lesaper b'yetziat Mitzrayim. You've got to speak about the story, right? Avadim hayinu b'far Mitzrayim. The Bala Hagadah is saying over here that we were slaves and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out, and this is Nageya to you. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't get involved and he didn't change the Hanhaga, right? Again, v'yotzianu Hashem Elokeinu misham biyad chazaka v'zronatiyah. There was a new Hanhaga. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out with His hand, right? Before you say all the shtiklach, what does it mean? Yad chazaka, Israel Natuya, right? Just general, right? Here's the Hanhaga. We were slaves, and now there was a new Hanhaga in the Bria, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself put His hand in and took us out. That's called a new level of Hashkaha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself gets involved, right? Ve'ilu lo hatzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu davaten. If that Hanhaga didn't change, if there wasn't now an input from HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly, you would still be an Eved in Mitzrayim. You would still be an Eved. Nothing would have changed. And therefore, Yetzias Mitzrayim is Nageya to you. And that's why you are obligated in these mitzvahs. Because if it didn't happen, you would still be there. Right? You would still be there. So now, just another Nakuda here, which is the Mefarshim Rav Dessler asked this Shaila as well. It's a famous kasha. What does that mean? What does that mean that we would still be slaves? We see empires fall. We would still be slaves. It's still. What do you mean? We've advanced. There's no pyramids anymore. There's not going to be chariots and Mitzrayim. Well, make it tasty. Uncle Abe freed the slaves. Right? In America, there'd be still slavery now. The world moves on. Yeah. What's pshat? What's pshat in that? What's pshat? So Rav Dessler says a gavaldiga thing, which is he says no, the Tumas Mitzrayim, the Tumas Eved would still be in you, right? And be'etzem, in terms of a where you were on a nafshiyastika level, you would be the same. You'd still be the same, shiftless, nothing moved. But okay, you might have Grada moved out of Mitzrayim, but because there was no more, there would be no more Egyptian empire, but you'd still be the same loser mushkas, right? That's what Rav Dessler says. The best pshat that I ever heard from this was from one of my rebbes, Rav Leuchter, Pashut pshat. And if you understand what we've been saying now, it's Pashut. This is mamash what the Bala Hagadah is saying. We've been and it's better to mafurish in the Gemaras in Megillah. Why do empires fall? Why? Why did Mitzrayim fall? Why did the Persian Empire fall? Why did the Babylonian Empire fall? Why did all that happen? One reason. Klal Yisrael. That's it. No, kipshuto. The only reason history moved, right? The only reason history moved at all is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu got into the picture and he activated a new Hanhaga. He started to move things because he had a project called Klal Yisrael so he wanted things to move. So Mela, he took down Mitzrayim, right? And if you look at the Gemaras in Megillah, the beginning there, it talks about why HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out the Babylonian Empire, and why HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out the Persian Empire, right? And the Greeks and everything else and all of the empire. It was all because of Klal Yisrael, all of it. That means Pasha Pshat. Ilu lo hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu et avateinu Mitzrayim harei anu uvneinu uvnei vanei. We would still be slaves in Egypt. Yes, the Egyptian Empire would still be there, and we'd still be slaves there. Nothing would have moved. Okay, so there might have been technological advancements, so what? But Mitzrayim would still be the superpower of the world, and we'd still be slaves there, and we'd just be 100th generation avadim, because there's no reason for anything to happen. Why? Why should the Kadosh Baruch Hu make this Sar now come down? Why? For what? If there's no Klal Yisrael, if there's no Tachlis to the Bria, so nothing has to move. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a new Hanhaga in the Bria. An Hanhaga called L'mayla min Teva. We'll speak more about that. What does that mean? L'mayla min Teva. An Hanhaga of Hashkaha Pratis. He wanted a nation that represents him, and they have a special Hashkaha, right? And Memela he took out Mitzrayim. And that's why it's Nageya to you. It's mamash nageh to you. And that's why you're obligated in the matzah, the moror, the haseba, and all of these things. You're obligated in that, because if that didn't happen, you'd still be there. You'd still be there. This is Poshup Pshat in the Hagadah. This is before all of the klechas and everything else. That is the simple thing what the Baal Hagadah is doing. What's going on over here? I'll tell you what's going on. There was something called Yetzias Mitzrayim, which was a new Hanhaga, HaKadosh Baruch Hu getting involved, B'yad Chazakah V'Zrua Netuyah, and that's mamash nageh to you, because if he didn't do that, you'd still be there, because there's no reason for the Bria to move whatsoever, because there's no Hanhaga, there's no Chiddush in the Bria at all, En Chadash Tachas HaShemesh, there's no reason for any empire to fall. So therefore, even if you're a big man, and even if you know Kol HaTorah Kula, you still got to talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, because Yetzias Mitzrayim has something to be machadesh to you every year. Every single year has that. And if you don't understand that, you're missing massively in how you understand Yetzias Mitzrayim. And you know what? Well, we'll just finish off, because we can just stick this in. Maybe we'll speak more about this tomorrow. But look, and that's the next piece of the. And do you know what? Maseh b'Rebbi Elazar, v'Rebbi Yeshua, v'Rebbi Elazar ben Azariah, v'Rebbi Akiva, v'Rebbi Tarfon, shayim masubim b'Bnei Brak, v'ayim masaprim b'Yetzias Mitzrayim kol ha'layla, ad shebal talmidim, v'amru lehem, Rabbi Seir gives mashal keish mashal shachris. Right? Again, that's the same thing. No one knew more midrashim and tifa things about Yetzias Mitzrayim than Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon. No one, right? No one. I can promise you that. Right? They knew everything. Everything that you could possibly think, everything you've ever read, everything you ever think of, they knew it. They all knew it. But you know what? They also stood there the whole night, because they understood that it's Nogeya to them. And you know, there's something that Yetzias Mitzrayim has to be machadish to them. Even when they're already Rabbi Akiva, and when they're Rabbi Tarfon. Ad kedei kach, they can speak about it until Shachris, the whole night. The whole way through. Because it's Nogeya to you. And therefore, that's the general answer, right, of the Baal Hagadah over here. What's going on? This is what's going on. A new Hanhaga, HaKadosh Baruch Hu getting in, and that's everything. This is the most important thing in the world, and you've got to understand that. And look, even the G'dolei Olam Mamish, they spend the whole night talking about this, because they understood the depth of what's going on over here, and how it's endless, it's Ein Sof, and it has what to be Machadish to every person in every door, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in mind that door when he did it. Shaharei, if he didn't do it, you'd still be there as well. So when he was being paid to them, he was paid to you as well. Be'etzem, right? In Lomdas, he was being paid to you as well. So Mela has something to tell you as well. So you've got to think about that. Right? I think that's enough for today. That's the basic answer of the Hagadah, and we'll see the Baal Hagadah develops this more until you get to Mitchila of the Avodah Zarah. Okay, Ad Kan.